There is a lot more overtaking, a lot more of a buzz around Formula 1, I'd say. There's also one guy out front that's getting really annoying now.
Yeah,
how he keeps doing that?
How did he do that?
It's all dressed in blue, but it stops at the wrong pit.
Fantastic guys, not bad for number 2 driver. Cheers.
Mark, you need to maintain the gap. Maintain the gap.
Okay, so Fernando is faster than you. Can you confirm you understood that message?
Maybe it's because I'm black. That's what Ali G says.
Oh, I'm pushing, don't worry.
Well, he must be the rudderless Russian then, because the steering wheel's sitting in his lap.
The only way that engineer's message could have been any scarier would have been if it was delivered in the dark. He is faster and he is going to attack you.
Ring ding 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 ding.
What's up, everybody, F1 fans around the world? Welcome to the inaugural episode of what is now the Backmarkers F1 podcast. After the blogs, the YouTube channel, and random Twitter comments, we're actually going live now in podcast world. And with me today, and hopefully for many more times, will be Matt, aka Agent Mulder 5. Notice I didn't mess up your Twitter name for once. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing all right. Yes, you always seem to give my number either too much credit or just forget it even exists at all. So there are random people out there on Twitter who are like, who the hell is this villain guy? What is he doing tweeting me about this Formula 1?
Well, it's your fault for picking not so, original name in the sense I'm sure there's like 500 Agent Mulders on Twitter.
Probably. The truth is out there, and it happens to be on the microblogging sites. But yes, as you have said, this is our inaugural podcast after being so gracious as to give me my commentary debut in your Hell Week special that was Catalunya. I've gone to do some Bort's commentaries, and now I'm coming back home to do a podcast with you, so let's see how this goes.
Yeah, for sure. Worked out well on, indeed, that torture, which was the 100% race in Catalunya. But, of course, this podcast is, well, going to be a little bit about our virtual lives in F1 as wannabe F1 drivers. But mostly, of course, about the real world of F1 and everything that's going on here. And what better than to pick a time to start a podcast than mid-season break?
Yes, the factory's closed, the tracks are silent, and we basically have nothing to do for the next 3 weeks as F1 fans, so why not talk about this? Why not talk about the sport we love? It's a rather good idea, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, indeed. And one of the things we wanted to do with this podcast is take a bit more of a look at what's happening behind the top guys. Of course, we'll be discussing the top guys or the not-so-top guys in top cars, and take a good deep look at what's happening in the mid and the back field. And for this, I've devised, after years of research, a special WDC standing, splitting the WDC in 3, actually. So we got the top 3 teams, then we got the midfielders, and then we got the backmarkers, which, to my sadness, is still Team Lotus, Virgin, and HRT. So yeah, we'll get into the depth on that and see how the race went. And yeah, it's the summer break, but of course there's still one Grand Prix we can review, which we'll be doing in the subsequent podcast as well. But yeah, the Hungarian Grand Prix, usually pretty much of a bore, processional race. Not much to do. Like last year's race was basically just people following each other around, with the most spectacular moment being Rosberg's tire flying off in the pit lane and getting body checked by Williams mechanic, I think. And then, of course, Schumi trying to kill Rubens. But this year was something else, right, Matt?
Yeah, it really was something else, partially because of really, really interesting weather conditions. It wasn't like Silverstone's start where you could definitely say, okay, it's wet. It was more of kind of an in-between. We had some really exciting race. I think thanks a lot to Pirelli for that. Tire degradation, we had passes left and right. We had spins, we had drama, we had cars exploding, quite literally. It was a hell of a race.
Yeah, it was a great one, though. I gotta say, I was a bit sad it was those changeable conditions, because I really wanted to see how the teams stacked up on dry race pace, all circumstances, a bit controlled. But then again, we got a great race out of it. But it just makes it just a tad harder to analyze where especially the top 3 teams lay now, because And I've posted this recently on the blog about taming the Red Bulls. The Red Bulls don't seem to be as dominant as they were at this point last year. They had a 1.2 second advantage over third place man Alonso in quali last year. And this year, Webber had what, a 10th over Hamilton in quali?
Yeah, I think it was about a 10th, maybe a little less than that. But yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like the end-all, be-all dominant performance of Sebastian Vettel has at least temporarily come to an end. You know, he doesn't seem to be able to, Germany, I could see the pressure of the home Grand Prix definitely factoring in, but Hungary, I mean, the guy had nothing to lose. I don't understand where his pace has gone.
Yeah, I mean, he did, of course, pull off a great quali lap, but yeah, during the race, it was one of the first times we just didn't see him stretching his legs after the first lap being 5 seconds ahead. He really had his mirrors full of some gray-colored Lewis Hamilton on a charge and basically cracked under pressure again.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair to the guy, I mean, I think they're in a state now where they really just don't want to take risks. They're becoming like Ferrari does pretty much all season, where they have a very secure position. They don't need to spend the money as much on R&D, take the risk that it'll slow the car down, don't need to take the risks in the race that they'll put it into the wall, which has happened before. Seeing Sebastian try to race people. So I think now they're just content to just ride this wave to the very end and just secure solid points and get the WDC.
Yeah, it's true. It's all that Vettel needs. I mean, he doesn't need to go wheel to wheel. I mean, they're still top 3 car, and even if he finishes 6th all the time, he'll probably still win the WDC. There's not that many Grand Prix left. We're past the halfway mark. And, yeah, I mean, if someone's pressuring too much, yeah, he's probably not going to squeeze him off into the apex or something like that. So it's a bit of a shame, but you can understand where he's coming from. I mean, he wants a title. He's already got a bunch of wins and poles this year, and even though he likes his records, the dude's still pretty young. He's got plenty of time to break Schumi's records, that's for sure.
Indeed, he does. But, yeah, I think it's somewhere... I remember if I did the math right, he could not show up to Spa or Monza or Singapore and still come out with the lead at the end of all of that. So he has a very comfortable lead. And the problem is we don't have one other person behind him that's dominating the rest of the best, or the best of the rest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So we have drivers taking wins off of one another. And, yeah, that's great and all for us, the viewers, but that just means that Seb stays ahead.
Yeah, it's something, a lot of people say. I mean, the WDC is pretty boring, but the individual races are great, pretty much each and every one except Valencia, that boring Tilkedrome. But pretty much otherwise, all the races have been fabulous, even though Vettel won most of them. But, yeah, like you say, it's, Button took 2 wins, Hamilton 2 wins, Alonso 1 win. There's not one challenger, and... Same what happened with Schumacher in, what was it, 04, 03, when, every time, the few times when Schumacher didn't win, it was either Montoya or Raikkonen, or there just wasn't one challenger stepping up to the plate. Nobody else consistent enough to, claw him back. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes in the next couple of races, but, yeah, as long as someone starts stringing together wins that isn't Vettel, yeah, the WDC is his, let's face it.
Yeah, unless for some reason they just McLaren aside to just basically tell Button or Hamilton move over and let the other guy pass. I mean, because the only way you're ever going to challenge for the WDC at this point is if you have one consistent person. So it's either going to be Hamilton or Button or Alonso. Yeah. Those are probably the 3 biggest, and out of those 2, Hamilton or Alonso have the best chance to take it off of them. And I just can't see, the Ferrari's been so shaky, and Button has given Hamilton a run for his money, so I don't know. I think it's probably best for everyone now to focus on the WCC, move on, and take the fight to the Red Bulls next year.
Yeah, well, for that, even the WCC, Red Bull's long gone in a way, but looking at Ferrari and McLaren, with Massa's performance, I don't think there'll be a challenger anytime soon. I mean, that's one thing that's lacking this season is that the top 3 is just so far ahead of the next, the best of the rest, the Mercedes, I guess. But they're like 1.5, 2 seconds off the pace. It's not like last year where you had Rosberg on a podium a few times or Kubica. You had the 4th and 5th fastest teams sometimes being able to have an upset. And here, yeah, sure, we had the Renault on the podium in the first couple of races. But, yeah, I guess we'll get to what's going wrong at Renault in a second.
Yeah, that's rather disappointing. I really did think with, their design and with their performance early on that, I never thought that we would see consistent Renault podiums, but at least I thought that they could give them a challenge and a run for their money on most of these races. But like you said, we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those, it's almost reminiscent of the Schumacher days where you had Ferrari up in front and then everyone else behind kind of trying to pick up the pieces. But that's also playing out this year, not only in the top field, but in the midfield as well, with basically Massa leading the charge and then Mercedes and everyone else behind just utterly failing, especially Williams. Oh God, Williams.
Oh, so you're counting Massa as a midfield driver?
I am counting Massa as a midfield driver in a top field team. I am, and it's nothing against the guy. I love the guy. I don't think I would be able to take a spring in the face at 160 miles an hour and live, much less go back to racing Formula One. So got to give the guy props for that. But at the same time, I mean, the guy is consistently at least 3 places behind Alonso. Yes, he outqualified him a couple times, but every time in the race, he just doesn't seem to have the pace.
Yeah, well...
And I think he would do much better in a midfield team where he would actually be able to push and give teammates runs for their money than basically being the whipping boy for Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, it's no gift being up against Alonso, of course, as a teammate. We all know how well Alonso gets on with competitive teammates. But, it's no excuse. Ferrari, it's still a Ferrari he's in. There's no excuse for him to pretty much consistently be the last of the top runners. I mean, I don't think he's had any upsets. I think he's basically been always last unless Hamilton crashed out or Button had his DNFs. Otherwise, he's just always been, maximum 6th. And, yeah, he outqualified Alonso once last weekend, his first time in a year. But, yeah, he got passed right at the start again. And when they were on track, I mean, he really let Alonso through again somewhere in the race during a stint. Didn't even fight him. It was just that, yeah, go ahead. I can't keep up. You are faster than me. I'm sorry. Cry, baby. So that's the top 6. Gotta say, major props for that win on Button. Hamilton pretty much threw away a 1-2 because, I mean, McLaren had the race pace. They were the quickest car in the race. Hamilton already, messed it up a little bit in quali. Still a great lap, but could have gotten pole. Looked like it was his pole to take, but a little mistake in the final corner, a little bit of understeer, then oversteer, and that made for another Vettel pole. Oh, boring. And then that was weird. What do you think about his on-track action he got a penalty for, spinning the car around?
I don't know what I think about it. Okay, so he spins the car. Okay, big deal. Changeable conditions, it happens. Now, I don't think he saw duress, to be fair, but he had to know from previous corners that there is cars behind him. So it's not as though he had absolutely no idea duress was coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, he just lapped them, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, so you want to maintain the lead, so you want to get the car around as quick as you can. Why didn't he turn around the other way? If he had done that, everyone could have gone by on the right side and been perfectly clean and clear. But when he decided to whip his car back and forth, he did it going towards the racing line when you have cars coming. I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't really think he was thinking about it so much as it was just a heat of the moment, shit, I got to get my car righted again, go forward. And ended up cutting off duress. I mean, I love Hamilton. I'm a massive fan, but I really don't know what he was thinking with that move. Should he gotten a penalty? I don't know, but I can't say I disagree with the stewards.
Yeah, for once, because pretty much most, if not all, the penalties he had this year I found exaggerated. But this one, I think I gotta agree with the stewards. I mean, it was dangerous. Di Resta was pushed on the grass to avoid him, and I think it was a deserved penalty. And yeah, that of course robbed Lewis maybe of the win. I'm not sure. Button had good pace, and every time at the end of stints he was catching him. Hamilton hadn't gone to the intermediates yet, but he had the super softs on, while Jensen would have probably gone to the end anyway with his softs, even without that little rain spell. So I think Jensen would have still had it in the end, but it would have been a McLaren 1-2 almost for sure. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame for the McLaren and for the WDCC, but yeah, still good job by Lewis getting fourth. I mean, passing Webber there near the end, and Massa, who just was adrift at sea, it seemed. And Webber, even though gambling for the Inters as well, still managing P5, I guess, best he could take out of it. And Alonso, the sneaky, wily old fox, getting another podium position. He is doing a bit of a repeat of last year, consistent podiums. No matter what happens, Mr. Eyebrows is going to be on the podium.
Yeah, definitely. But back to the Hamilton getting fourth thing, I really think the penalties never really help anybody except for your competitors. I really think that the switch to inters that was made by him and a few other people is what damned him more than anything else. I mean, I don't understand that. Like, was the track so undrivable that they all had to go to inters then, or was it a choice to just try to cover off what other people were doing? I mean, I really, I don't buy for a second that there was not radio communication. I think that was just a PR move when he was interviewed by Lee. I think that they knew what they were doing. They just bungled it completely.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a gamble, and a gamble they didn't need to take with Lewis in the position he was in. I understand people further down the back, like Webber, trying that. Because, if it does keep raining, Inters are the tire to be on, but it rained for like 2 laps, and, But it's worth a gamble if you're further down the back, but not in Lewis's position. He should have just toughed it out. And I think Button himself said, the times, it was difficult to drive, but the times were too quick to warrant to change the inters at the time most people did. So I think it was just a gamble, but a gamble the McLaren team and Lewis just shouldn't have made in his position. It's something you do when you're in the back and try to make up some positions, not from the lead.
Yeah, if you're in the lead, basically, it should just be stick with what you got, keep going, do it only if you have to. I don't understand that move at all.
Yeah, because they only really had Vettel to cover, so they should have just watched what Vettel did, and then if he would have came in, maybe then do it. But a bit of a strange team decision. Though, Lewis was pretty magnanimous about it. He didn't. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be another one of his explosive interviews post-race, but he was like cool about it. It was like, apologized to the rest for the incident, and didn't bitch about the team bringing him in or something. It was a pretty mature interview for once.
Yeah, I agree completely. I expected another Ali G moment. I saw him going out to Lee McKenzie, and I'm just like, no, don't do this, Lewis, don't do this, Lewis.
Whitmarsh cringing, when because he was being interviewed by AJ and Jake when they went to the interview. It was like, and here's Lewis Hamilton with Lee, and you could see Whitmarsh like, oh boy, hope he sticks to the script this time.
Yeah. I'm a fan of Lewis not going with the script. I like his interviews because they seem to be more candid than a lot of the drivers. And, Button, too, all of McLaren seem to be that way. But sometimes that can backfire.
Yeah, and I think...
as we saw in Monaco.
I think to wrap up our top team discussion, I'll start touching about my special scientifically developed WDC table, which, like I said, I'm going to split up the top 3 teams in a league of their own, which they basically are, and they're going to be using the point system used in the 90s. So 10 points for a win, 6 for number 2, 4, 3, 2, 1, basically. And, well, no surprise, after 12 races here in Hungary before the summer break, we got Vettel in the lead, even with the other point system. Now, that's a big shock, of course. Vettel's up there with 87 points, and Hamilton's in P2. 45 points. Alonso with his consistent podium finishes in 42. Button with this win clawed himself back up, of course, at 2 DNF, so he's 4th with 40 points. He's equal with Webber, 40 points. So it's interesting to see how that already differs from the real standings, let's say, where, if I'm not mistaken, let me quickly pull them up here, it's Webber in P2, right, in the championship standings?
I believe so, yeah. It would have been, I think... it would have been Hamilton had he won that race, but seeing as he only got 4th, Webbo still maintains position 2 in the not by much though, only by 3 points. So yeah, Hamilton would have definitely had it if he had won.
Yeah.
Alonso 1 point behind Hamilton. So it is pretty exciting if you look at the best of the rest behind Seb. So we just need to somehow remember to put the explosive in Sebastian's car and not Nick's.
Yeah, indeed. And then, bringing up the pack, it's Massa with a wholly unimpressive 11 points. So that's,
Felipe, Felipe.
Pretty shocking. Way, way behind everybody else. Constructors, no surprise there. Red Bull on top, 127. McLaren 85 and Ferrari 53. Thank you, Felipe. And that's another thing why Felipe probably shouldn't be in a Ferrari anymore. It's for the constructors' points, man. It's worth a lot of money becoming second or third in the constructors. And, with Felipe there, it's going to be hard challenging the McLarens with two consistently good point-scoring drivers. And with Ferrari, one guy always finishing pretty much the worst his car could do every race. That's going to hurt him in the constructors. But, of course, let's move on to the midfield, who have their own WDC, of course, in the Backmarkers F1 podcast. Let's look at a bit of the race in the midfield for Hungary. For me, the one who stood out the most was, Di Resta with a great performance, but as well Buemi, who from 23rd after his 5-place grid slot moved up to P8, definitely putting his mark down against Alguersuari, who was doing pretty well up until then.
Yeah, Alguersuari seemed to be having a little bit of a resurgence after, you so predicted that he would be losing his seat due to basically being utterly manhandled by Buemi every opportunity. Alguersuari had a bit of a resurgence in recent races, but Buemi's basically come back this one to say, no, I'm faster than you.
Yeah, plus, and this kind of goes for Buemi this race as well, but Alguersuari, he had a good string of results, starting with Canada. But don't forget, in Canada, he botched his Q1 and finished outside of, didn't get into Q2, botched it completely, which allowed him, he took the penalty to completely change the setup to be a wet weather setup. And of course, that helped him hugely during the race. So that's when he nabbed his points. Valencia, he botched up Q1 again, and so he had a bunch of fresh tires, and the strategy really helped him out. And I'm not saying he didn't do well to finish where he did, but there were mitigating circumstances for him beating Buemi in pretty much all these good results he had. And now Buemi, in a way, like I said, it counts for him as well. Had a bunch of fresh tires for this race. And strategy went his way, but still impressive, slicing through the field like that. He made up a bunch of positions. I think he went from 24 to 14 in 2 laps at the race start. That's some pretty balls-out racing. He definitely hung his balls out of the cockpit there.
Yeah, definitely showing you how good he is in the rain, just when everybody, including Vettel and Hamilton, getting sideways every which way, to be able to get through the field unscathed like that is quite the impressive effort, I must say. But yeah, Buemi giving Sutil some lessons in slicing and dicing, getting all the way up from the back. So yeah, I think he did. I think he fell behind right at the start and then just was like, well, screw this lot, straight on through.
Yep, and Sutil, who had a great qualifying, got into Q3, if I remember correctly. And then he made a mistake. He said himself he kind of outbraked himself and was about to hit his teammate, Di Resta, who already gotten ahead of him. So he had to cut the chicane, lost a bunch of spots there, had a little spin. So Sutil just went moving backwards after this great Q3, while his teammate Di Resta finishing in 7th. Very impressive. Ahead of the Mercedes. The rest after a string of, a bit rookie races where he had some silly mistakes and lost a lot of front wings. Definitely back in his stride here. 7th for Di Resta was hugely impressive in my opinion.
Oh, most definitely. It is disappointing. Sutil outqualified Schumacher, actually, in Q3. Got up to 8th, and then just kind of fell apart from there. But, definitely props to Di Resta. I like the guy. He knows what he's doing. And for his first year in Formula 1 to be, right up there with the Ferraris and the Mercedes, it's pretty impressive.
No, it says something for the Force India as well. It's usually a team that falls back a bit. but in the development race, although, 09, they had their moment of glory in Spa, of course, with Fisichella. But who would have won if Raikkonen didn't have Kurse? But that's a whole other story. But yeah, last race, Sutil finishing 6th, This race, Di Resta finishing 7th. Force India is coming strong, and both times they managed to split the Mercedes in qualifying. So yeah, definitely the Force India is coming quite strong this year, and with Spa and Monza being tracks that seem to suit them well in the past, we might see some good performances from Di Resta and Sutil coming up.
Force India seems always to be the team to go to when you're talking about really high speed. They seem to, for whatever reason, they might not have the downforce in the corners, but they have the speed. They're much like Mercedes in that aspect, which I guess being a Mercedes-powered car makes sense. But Spa definitely, and if not so much Spa, then definitely watch Monza. I think if you don't see great results from them in Spa, that would be a surprise. But if they don't finish way up there in Monza, then you can basically just laugh at this cast right now, because the way they've been going, I could definitely see, play the circumstances right. Podium might be far away, but top 5 is definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, Massa's probably going to do something stupid, so that's P6 up. And if anyone else in front cocks up, definitely they could be there. It's true, Force India and the factory Mercedes team, they're usually the ones on top of the speed traps. And, well, Spa and Monza is pretty much the highest, longest straights, high speeds. Which should suit them, definitely. And, we talked about Buemi and the Toro Rosso a little bit. Toro Rosso, yeah, they're okay, I guess. Nothing spectacular really coming out of the car. And I remember in preseason, people were like, the Toro Rosso looks interesting. They had that, special floor on the car, But, yeah, the car is, it's good enough to pick up some of the final points. But, it's a strange team, It's a driver development team. But Buemi's been there for 3 years. Alguersuari for 2.5. I don't know. They got Ricciardo in the wings. They got Jean-Eric Vergne, I guess, if you want to do it Frenchy style, who's pretty much kicking ass in a World Series by Renault, who's also a young Red Bull driver. I don't know, man. Is Buemi or Alguersuari really doing enough to warrant a 4th year in a Toro Rosso? For a development team, that seems a lot.
It does seem a lot, and they seem to be almost like the ones that didn't make it almost, because there's no secret that Toro Rosso is basically just the door to get into Red Bull. But the problem is right now, Sebastian was an unknown going in, and he's just taken off. So he's not going anywhere. Webbo seems to be ready to sign a contract till 2012, maybe 2013. So he's not there, so then where do you go? I mean, all your other teams are pretty much secure. Could Ferrari take one of them on? Maybe, but they have Sauber, which is a Ferrari-powered team.
Yeah.
Renault, maybe, but they're having enough problems of their own, as we'll get to eventually. Where do they go? And there's only one option, really, which is out of F1. Just simply because you're right, it is a development team. It's it's almost like a young driver's academy, but an actual Formula One season in a way. So the decision's going to have to be made soon enough. Yes, we're getting decently consistent results with these guys, but what kind of young talent are we passing up to keep these two in a development team?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they're probably going to end up having to drop one of them from the Red Bull program, just saying they might be able to get a seat somewhere else in F1, but just no longer under the Red Bull umbrella.
Which would definitely be a major upset, just simply because, I mean, if you had the potential to be in the number 1 car, I mean, I don't know. I mean, where else would you go, though? That is the thing. Where do you think that whoever gets kicked is going to land?
Yeah, that's a whole other story. But I just, with Ricciardo now getting the HRT drive, and you can just feel it and see it in the interviews that Ricciardo, he's got the Red Bull stuff, He's the new wonder boy. It's not Buemi or Alguersuari. We're kind of like in the gray zone, But Ricciardo's really got that loving from Mr. Marco, this big old man love. So, I don't even think it's not even so far-fetched. Do you really see Buemi or Alguersuari in a Red Bull? I don't really. I think it's even more likely if Webber does quit or go to another team. I think it's more likely that Ricciardo will jump straight up to Red Bull than it will be Buemi or Alguersuari. I mean, sure, they've been doing some good results, and Buemi's race was really good here in Hungary, but have they really, show something spectacular? Something really, really, you'd say, yeah, this guy's got the stuff. Not really, and they've had 3 years to do it now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with Sebastian, it was evident that he was something special when he brought that car all the way up the field.
Yep.
But yeah, no. I laughed at first when I heard that Red Bull was going to put experimental driver, so to say, in HRT. I'm just like, oh god,
poor guy.
What are they going to get from that thing? Yeah, exactly. But you know what? To be fair to the guy, he's been doing solid. He beat Liuzzi in Hungary. He's been getting solid races in. He hasn't drug that car all the way into the midfield, but
which is impossible.
Really, if you did that, parts would start falling off the car,
which they already do.
So yeah, as we saw in was that the race or was that That was the race.
Yeah, I think during the race there was a piece of front wing that just flicked off Liuzzi's car.
Might have improved aerodynamics.
I remember the first races of the season, they tended to, just lose superfluous body parts from time to time.
Well, I know the Toro Rosso lost, what was it, an entire side pod in Malaysia or China?
Yeah, and that then went and pierced Perez's monocoque, I think, even. It was something pretty heavy that fell out of the Toro Rosso there. Yeah, it must have been Malaysia.
Yeah, it nearly slice his monocoque a little bit. That would have been quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But, he's been getting decent results out of that car.
Yeah, his race in Hungary was great. First of all, his first 3 races, he hasn't cocked up, hasn't put it in the wall, hasn't done any big spins or something that I've seen, unlike a certain Karun Chandok, whose first performance in Germany was pretty much of a joke. He kept spinning out and then, and what was it, in Melbourne, his first lap in the Lotus in free practice, bam, right into the wall. So, yeah, compared to that, and Chandok has had a half a season of racing in an HRT. And then Ricciardo just comes up there. He's close to Liuzzi from the get-go in quali. And his third race, he beats him consistently. Very nice.
Definitely. I'm impressed with the guy. I really think he has something special. Would I put him in a Red Bull automatically, even if Webbo retires? I don't know.
He's got the Marco man love.
He has the man love, I admit. Oh, God, I can't believe I'm saying this. But, I just don't know. I think that they should put him in the Toro Rosso at least for a year. A faster car, just to see how he handles a car that's some actual pace. After that, what do you do from there? I don't know. Well, we'll have to see how he does in Toro Rosso. But I think it would be a big risk. Sebastian was with Toro Rosso for a while. He ended up proving himself and is now in Red Bull. So it would be a big risk just to throw him from an HRT into a Red Bull. Basically, the biggest jump that you can have in Formula 1.
And it probably wouldn't be so welcomed by Buemi or Alguersuari.
No, they would. They're lacking in the man love. Let's just say that.
Yeah, they just don't have any man love from Marco or Mateschitz. And yeah, definitely, I think one of them is going to be out of a Toro Rosso in any case next year. I think it's pretty much inevitable. It's been too long for a development team. They're going to need to boot one out. That's just how it is. So yeah, moving on. Let's have we discussed the Mercedes yet? Not really. Rosberg pretty much dragging the car up to its potential. Usually qualifies around P7 and usually finishes around there too. So I think just a solid season yet again by Rosberg, showing he does have the talent of the daddy, I should say. And it's a good sign that a son of a driver is starting to make his own name. Because in the beginning, I just always thought Keke whenever they were talking about Rosberg. But these last couple seasons, Rosberg has become his own driver. It's Nico Rosberg. And he's impressing me. He's always drags the car up to its potential, pretty much always. Not exactly what you could say from a 7-time world champion teammate now, isn't it?
No, definitely. Well, Rosberg has been dragging the car up past its potential. Michael has usually been dragging the car back to the garage. Yeah, it's disappointing from Schumacher. I mean, I started liking the guy a little bit more this year just because I feel bad for him. I mean, he was the reason I stopped watching Formula One, in the early 2000s, just because every time I turned on the TV, Michael Schumacher, Michael Schumacher, Michael Schumacher, it got boring.
Yeah, same here.
Very much boring, which is, so I was like, okay, whatever. But this season, I definitely think, and we saw it in Canada and with a few moves he's put on since. There's some definite flashes of the old Schumi still there, some definite potential, but I don't know. I mean, the guy, he just can't get a break. I do think some of it is getting older, but then in other cases, it's just not having a dominant car. That car has some problems with it, has some reliability issues, as we saw in Monaco, where he was on the way to a decent finish, and then it just blew up on him.
Yeah, and I think his DNF in Hungary, he spun out while fighting with Massa, I think. But the retirement was due to a gearbox failure. So he had a spin, but it didn't touch anything. But he still pulled it off the road because apparently his gearbox gave up. So another technical DNF in Hungary for Schumacher as well. So he hasn't gotten the roll of the dice, but it's a bit like Massa to Alonso. He's just consistently finished a couple spots behind his teammate. It's not as bad as Massa usually is right behind him, but still just can't get on top of Rosberg.
Yeah, definitely. No German man love going on there. He is not on top of Rosberg. But, yeah, I don't know. It is similar to the Massa situation, but at the same time, I think that Schumacher, given a car that doesn't seem to constantly break down or overheat its brakes, I think he might be able to show us a bit more performance than he's giving now. I think there's still hope for Michael. Now, whether that will come before he is pretty much too old to drive F1, which is, we got to be honest, it's coming soon enough. Well, I mean, that's the question. How much of this is due to his old age? How much of, well, I say that in relative terms, and how much of that is due to an underperforming car? I mean, you got Barrichello, who did, decently for Braun in 09. How much of that was due to the car, we can argue, but, did decently with Braun, did decently with Williams last year. I mean, and that's another example of, I think, where the car is just not helping things. Age doesn't help, neither does the car.
Yeah, I mean, it's no question that the Mercedes, they've taken a step back compared to the top three teams when you look at last year. And, at least Rosberg was able to fight for podium sometimes. But now he hasn't even been close. I guess in China a little bit before he had to save fuel. But besides that, Mercedes podium was just, it's not even imaginable most of the times. So yeah, the car is definitely not there for him. But, you're only racing your teammate really once the car is not really up there. And speaks volumes for Rosberg being outperformed here by, the other way around. Schumi being outperformed by Rosberg. So, yeah, I don't know about Schumi. I don't think he's going to quit. I think he just, he's getting better. His performance is better than last year in relative terms. I mean, like you say, he has shown some real flashes of the old Schumi, which he basically didn't show at all last year. So, yeah, there's still something there. But if we're ever going to see it again, I don't know. But I think he'll stick around for next year.
Yes, I think that he's going to stick around until he gets at least another podium.
Yeah.
A win is way out there. A WDC is, unless we have a return of the Braun level performance, which, to be honest, I was surprised when they weren't right up there in 2010 and especially this year, because I'm thinking, okay, it's Ross Braun with actual funding. Let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it hasn't happened. It all depends. Will he stick around? I think his best chance will be in 2014 when these new engine regs go into effect. But the question becomes, will he be around long enough to see that? Will he stick around until 2014?
Well, he'll be 44
or will he realize...
by then, I think. So, and his contract is maximum till next year, I think, included. Of course, new contracts can be made up, but if next year he doesn't do better, I think even Mercedes are going to lose patience with him.
Yeah, if Mercedes doesn't sign, then no one will. I mean, you got a German works team with the German Wonder Boy from the 90s and early thousands. I don't know. If he doesn't improve, I think they'd be more willing to sign him again than some others, but at the same token, I mean, I don't know. If they don't sign him, though, nobody will. Even though it is Michael Schumacher, yeah.
And they have another hot shot. Di Resta, strong links to Mercedes, waiting in the wings. So it's not like there's nobody there to take a spot if he would leave. There's already kind of a chosen successor. It's probably going to be Di Resta. I mean, he's been with them in DTM, and he really has the backing of the Mercedes guys. So it's not like there's nobody around to follow him around, which basically is the case a bit in Ferrari as well. Why Massa's still in the car. I mean, you can bet your bottom dollar if Kubica didn't have his accident, he'd have his contract with Ferrari for next year signed, a done deal. I'm sure about it.
Definitely. As much as I've gone on about getting Kobayashi into Ferrari, and while I would love to see that, if it was between Kubica and Kobayashi, Kubica definitely. I mean, the guy drug the Renault even when it was performing well. I don't think that was a podium car, and he drug it all the way up there, and so. Kubica, hope he comes back in 2012. Really, really hoping and praying that he does. Awesome guy. And, I mean, could we see him Ferrari 2013? Potentially. I mean, I don't know. How long, do you remember how long Massa's contract's been renewed for off the top of your head?
I think he's basically just sure for next year. That's the end of his contract. So he's got next year still to do. So 2012. Season he can do, but that's the end of his contract. But then again, Ferrari are not really sticklers for contracts. They were happy to pay, $20 million to Raikkonen to not race for them. So, they've never been too worried about contracts with drivers.
Yeah, I would take that any day if I could get paid $20 million by an F1 team just to sit on my buttocks.
Yes, indeed.
I would do it any day.
Okay, so let's move on to the next team. Who haven't we really discussed yet? I guess the Renaults. Let's go to the Renaults. That's always good for some spectacular fireworks. So we have Vitaly Petrov, who, let's be honest, he's picked up his performance from last year.
Yeah, he's definitely no longer the spinmeister that he was. I mean, Malaysia aside, and we like to joke about the rudderless Russian going off in Malaysia. Did I say that out loud?
Do it all day.
All day long, baby. But yeah, no. Joking aside, he really has picked up his performance, getting some solid results for Renault when they don't really seem to have a solid car. In the beginning, yes. Now, have they developed that thing at all? Have they spent more than $10 on a piece of masking tape for the radiators when they get too cold? I mean, I don't. That car just is falling apart, and in Heidfeld's case, quite literally exploding.
Yeah, that's
on the track.
That's twice Heidfeld's been engulfed in flames this year already. So, that car, that team in the whole is just such a mess. I don't think Kubica would really want to come back to Renault in the state the team is in now. I mean, it's just completely fell apart. They have the Lotus sponsorship whole mess with Danny Behar just buying in, and then Renault, they're still called Renault, but Renault has nothing to do with them anymore except as an engine supplier, and they've basically been bleeding staff all season long. It's like every 2 weeks there's another announcement. This guy leaves Renault. This guy leaves Renault. I mean, it's just an exodus there in that team, and there's rumors of money problems with the GNI guys not really forking enough dough. So yeah, that team is just falling apart at the seams. It seems to me, pardon the pun.
Yeah, indeed, they do seem to be falling apart. I mean, and I really don't know why. I don't know. In the beginning, they looked really strong. I never expected Renault to be up at the top. I thought their exhaust idea was interesting. I really didn't know how much that would really do with the aero, but I was wrong, and I was pleasantly surprised that they were up on the podiums. And then just after that, I mean, it's been consistent. It hasn't been like I would guess between Braun and Mercedes, where it was just like sheer just drop. It's been consistent, working their way down the field. Abysmal results in I think it was Monaco, where didn't they get like, what was it, P13, P17, something like that?
Well, Petrov crashed out in the whole mess that was that ruined the race with the red flag. He crashed into the wall, and he was the cause of the red flag because he couldn't feel his legs or something. So that's why he stayed in the car. And Heidfeld, finished way out of the points as well in Monaco, which is a track the Renault was expected to do well on. People were expecting them to have a resurgence, get back to their podium challenging ways. But it's true, it's strange. I mean, from out of the box, quick car, podium contender, all the way down. They're fighting the Toro Rossos now, and even the Lotus, because in Hungary, Heikki Kovalainen and Heidfeld spent most of his first stint behind Heikki Kovalainen and couldn't get past him.
Which is strange, very, very strange, but hey, that bodes well for the Lotus guys. I mean, we'll get to them eventually when we get to the backmarkers, but if they're challenging a team now that at one point was on the podium, imagine what they'll be able to do in a couple of years.
It's a bit funny, though, because Team Lotus, they were boasting at the beginning of the season, by the end of the season we'll be fighting the Renaults. And they might very well be. They're not exactly in the way they thought it would. Won't be on top of the field, but the Renaults are just coming back to them.
It's almost as if Lux has decided, okay, well, you want to fight us? Come and fight us. And we know Lux knows a little bit about fighting.
Oh, yeah, some gangster style. Although he was the bitch getting knifed. Well, not knifed, glassed, so he didn't seem to do much. But, Renault team, I can't say enough. It's just the car is just falling apart. The engineering is a bit dodgy with things exploding like it did for Heidfeld and setting on fire like it did with Heidfeld again.
I'm surprised that the FIA hasn't made it an issue about that, citing safety. Just because, I mean, if you have a car that's catching on fire and exploding, not once but twice, and it being the same driver's car, I would think they would want to have a look at that.
Yeah, and it injured a Marshall, that explosion in Hungary, because the Marshall was just coming around the side pot to put out the flames. And that's when it blew, and you saw him limping away, so he must have gotten a piece against his leg. I heard he's not badly injured or anything, but, he definitely took some debris in his foot somehow.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that. But Renault, not Lotus Renault, as some people seem to insistently call it, Renault, or we should call it Genii. They were a team at one point that I was really seriously considering trying to get internships with for next summer, just because I heard about their front exhaust. I'm like, hey, here's a team that knows how to innovate, but they've been on the downslope, and it'll be a question of will they remain in Formula One much longer. I mean, we see that with Williams too, which we'll get to soon enough, but will they stay in the same form that they did? I mean, we saw similar stuff with Jaguar back in the early 2000s. And it's disappeared from the scene, and now they're Force India. But will we have something like that with Renault, or I don't know?
I think the problem with Renault is, they lost the engine. They still have the engine, but they lost the Renault backing. And now, it's just such a murky deal, with Genii and Group Lotus. There's no really a drive behind that team. There's not that pure racing instinct. That racing team, which Williams does have. These are purebred racers. Even though they're racing in the back now, they still have that vibe, But Renault, Genii is some capital investment group that owns them, and there's just no passion behind it anymore. So I'm with you. I don't know if that team's gonna keep going for a long time. They might get bought out by someone with a more racing pedigree, but as it's going now, it's just going nowhere, and it doesn't help. Their driver lineup doesn't help. All respect to Petrov, he is improving, but I still think that car has got a couple tenths more in it than these guys, Petrov or Heidfeld, are able to extract from it. In my opinion, next to Williams, the weakest driver lineup on the grid. And sure, they're hampered by the car, but they're just, I think that car has a couple more tenths in it that they just can't extract, their drivers.
Yeah, I agree with you completely there. I mean, and it is sad to see Renault come from, where they were in the mid-2000s all the way down to this now, where basically we're considering whether or not they're still going to even remain in the sport for much longer. I mean, I don't know. I think it's part management, bad decisions, people leaving, people getting fired. Part of it is the car, which just seems to have not been developed. I mean, they seem to not spend any money on development. And then part of it is, like you said, the drivers. I mean, Petrov, he's improving. Eventually, will he be a strong contender? Yes, but I don't think he'll ever be up to where Kubica is.
No, he'll be.
With Kubica gone,
He'll be a Massa maybe someday.
Well, that doesn't exactly bode well for him now, does it?
Yeah, no, not really. But might get into a top team once, once he gets. Well, he's got the money. That'll definitely help. But yeah, it's a shame to see Renault struggling like they are. But yeah, let's move on. Why don't we go to the Williams guys? Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, Williams. Love that team. My favorite team in F1 2010, the game. Absolutely adore that team, but is pretty much all I can say about their performance so far. I mean, just pitiful.
Yeah, they're
pitiful.
They're really the back of the midfield. They're all the way in the back. They have basically no points. Just 4 points from Barrichello, I think. None for Maldonado. And Maldonado's put in a couple of good quali laps. He surprised me a little bit this season. I thought, Maldonado. Yeah, sure, GP2 champion, but after 4 years in GP2, racing against rookies, you're expected to do well. But he's done some, his quali lap in Spain and in Monaco in particular. Pastor was on the money there. He dragged that car in a Q3, and that's major. And Barrichello, I think his time has come there. And the team itself, ditching Sam Michael, and it's just a big mess as well, huh?
Yeah, it really defines cluster. I mean, it is one. They're falling apart at the seams as much as Renault is. I mean, Maldonado, would he have been on for a good finish in Monaco had Lewis not gotten pissed and ran him off the track? Yes, I think Maldonado would have probably been able to get a decent finish out of that car. And there have been, luck has played a factor where, there have been times when the Williams was decently strong and things just didn't go their way. But more often than not, I mean, you got a rookie driver who really, I mean, let's be honest. Besides having the personality of a brick, I mean, he doesn't seem to be anything spectacular. We have Barrichello, who I love the guy. I think he's great, but, like Michael Schumacher, he's getting old. And unlike Michael Schumacher, he's not a 7-time world champion. So, I think he'd be much more suited to doing technical stuff behind the scenes than actually racing.
Yeah, in a way there's a lot of parallels to the Renault team. I mean, well, the team members aren't quitting, but they're firing them. And then they brought in Coughlin of notoriety and the Spygate thing. And it seemed to me basically they took whoever was available on. I mean, sure, he worked at McLaren, so he's no slouch. But there's just, I don't know, Mr. Frank, Sir Frank seems to have a bit lost his vision, The team's so wayward, and ever since BMW dropped them, it's just been going downhill for him. And the same problem with Renault as well is the driver lineup. I don't think the drivers are getting the maximum out of that car, except a few quali laps by Pastor, maybe, which I just discussed. But Pastor, even though his qualifying has been pretty good, he just tends to go backward in a hurry all the way through the races. His race pace is nowhere.
Yeah, he besides Monaco, which, to be fair, you really can't pass in Monaco, so he could be going 2 miles an hour and nothing could happen. He doesn't seem to have the pace. Barrichello seems to have more of the race pace, but it just never seems to work out the way it should. I mean, always slipping back, always in the midfield to the back midfield, even sometimes tangling up with the backmarkers. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just a complete and utter train wreck.
Yeah, Maldonado's been one to finish a few times behind the Lotuses, if I'm correctly.
I believe you are, and I hold out hope for them just because they're getting Renault engines for 2013 or 2012 even. 2013, 2014, I believe, is what their contract is with them.
Yeah, they have the contract for now until 14 when the new engine regs come in. So next 2 years they'll definitely be rocking those Renaults again.
So could we see a resurgence of the 90s Williams that we knew and loved? I don't know. They'll need to get a stronger driver lineup, though, definitely, to even stand a chance of returning to their former glory. Midfield is possible, even with their current drivers, but if they want to start becoming a top form team once again, they're going to need some new faces.
Yeah, I think in having their current budget in mind, I mean, sure, they have the PVDSA sponsorship from Mr. Chavez, But, and then the whole going to the markets and stuff was basically just Patrick Head offloading his stock. So that didn't bring really an injection of money into the team. I think the best they can hope for in the near future is, fighting it out around where Mercedes are around now. That would be a huge leap, of course, already for them. But I think that's the best case scenario for Williams in the years to come.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unless they somehow get like the perfect storm of they get Massa from Ferrari, and then if they get another I mean, even if they got Kobayashi, because Kobayashi seems to not be getting the Ferrari drive in the near future at least. If they take Massa and Kobayashi, put them in a Williams with a Renault power engine, that might actually work well.
Well, it sounds sexy and it's definitely better than the current lineup they had. But, are they going to pass up on Maldonado with all that money? I mean, he's bringing a huge brick of money there with PVDSA. So I think he's a shoo-in for next year. I mean, he's been doing better than many expected as well. Props to the guy, but he needs to work on his race pace. That's basically it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'll give him... I think it would be fair enough just to give him this year to get used to the Pirellis, get used to the F1 speed and the way the car handles and all that. So, okay. Give him a write-off this year, see what he does next year. But then at the same token, I mean, Barrichello, like I said, I think the guy's great. I think he's funny. I loved him on Top Gear. And, he's done decently in the past. It's just, he's getting old and doesn't have the pedigree that Schumacher does. So,
yeah, I mean,
who do you replace him with?
He's a great guy, but that doesn't make you any good in a race car. I'm not saying he's bad, but yeah, I just think his time has come, and I'm thinking it's looking likely that Williams won't retain him, because that's another thing about Barrichello. They're saying, yeah, but he's so valuable. His experience in developing cars, it's so invaluable to the team. But let's face it, yeah, sure, he has plenty of experience and knows how to set up a car, but has he really proven that he's good for developing a car in his Honda years, for instance? They seem to produce lemon after lemon that year, and then now this Williams, they're always saying Barrichello is intensely involved with development of the 2011 contender, and well, turns out to be pretty much of a dog yet again. So is he really that valuable for developing a car? Evidence would suggest otherwise.
Yeah, I would agree. How much of that is PR just to say you had Schumacher's once teammate developing your car, and how much of that is actually him developing the car? I mean, I don't know. The specifics are unknown, but yeah, definitely to basically have that be your flagship piece. Hey, he's developing our car. Yay, let's go to the presses, and then have it be a complete flop. That whether or not it is him so much as it is everyone else, that just doesn't bode well for you when you've basically been heralded as the guy who's developing what is a piss poor car.
Yeah, true. So yeah, I guess we're done lamenting the Williams decline, and there's one more midfield team we haven't really discussed. We touched upon them, but that's of course the Sauber Ferraris of Kobayashi and Perez, who, in wild contrast to Renault and Williams, have two very exciting drivers.
Definitely contrasting to the Renaults and the Williams. You got Kobayashi, who just seems to always want to just put his car in suicidal places, and most of the time makes it work. It's really just a matter of, can I pass here? Maybe, maybe not. Let's try it anyway, foot to the floor. And you got Perez, who originally I thought, man, this guy, he's just really there for the money. But interestingly enough, turns out to be a strong contender for Kobayashi's positions. Taking a couple qualities off of him. I think he's actually taken a couple races off of him, even when Kobayashi doesn't DNF. So they've really got a strong driver lineup in that team.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Perez. When I heard the announcement and, the Mexican Carlos Slim backing, I was like, okay, another pay driver. But then again, you got to give it to Peter Sauber. He just always tends to find the talent, Raikkonen started with him. Well, Massa did as well. Okay, that kind of backfired maybe a little bit.
Moving on. Segue.
No, it's back to Perez. He's been impressive. I mean, and that's one of the things Kobayashi does need to work on. He's awesome on race pace. But qualifying, he just doesn't seem to have the one lap pure pace down yet. And as a result, and great results by Perez, has been out qualifying him quite a few occasions. Perez got it in Q3 2 times, Well, once in Monaco, and that didn't end too well for him. But now in Hungary as well, he was 10th. Didn't bother to run in Q3, which was probably a good tactical move anyway. He wasn't going to move up and saved himself a set of tires. But yeah, Perez, exciting driver. Although Jarno Trulli would not always necessarily agree. I don't know if you saw this, but he came out with a pretty livid account of his encounters with Perez during the Hungary race. Perez, though qualifying great in P10, like I said, dropped from P10 to P20 on the first lap. And that wasn't really with a spin or anything. He just was dead slow. So, yeah, not a lot of rain in Mexico. So maybe some question marks on his rain driving ability. But, yeah, so Trulli got ahead of him. And then Perez, apparently, according to Trulli, cut the chicane, got ahead of Trulli, and didn't give the spot back. So, yeah, a bit dodgy racecraft there, maybe. I mean, he had a couple of a stupid run-in with, I think it was Sutil in Malaysia, where he did a ridiculously optimistic move and took Sutil out there. So, yeah, maybe he needs to work a bit on his racecraft, but, yeah, exciting driver for sure.
And to be fair to, Perez, Liuzzi likes to complain about virtually everything, so whether or not that actually is how it went down, we'll have to see if they take any action. I doubt they will, but we'll have to see. But I really don't even know what to say. I mean, they're both really impressive drivers. They're taking a team that really shouldn't be where it is and basically throwing it up into the upper midfield and sometimes challenging in Q3. And yeah, Kobayashi does tend to get out qualified by Perez, but at the same token, with this new Pirelli style of tire, that actually isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, Kamui has never taken any issue with picking up a few spots on the racetrack, that's for sure. Yeah. What he lacks in qualifying pace, he definitely makes up for in racecraft. He's just such a spectacular guy. I love watching him race, and I really hope he gets into a top-running car at some point. It's not going to be next year. They're the only team who have already announced their full driver lineup for next year, basically. Although everybody's expecting McLaren to stay put with Hamilton and Button, Sauber just announced last week they're going to keep Perez and Kobayashi. Just great for Perez for sure. Kind of sad for Kobayashi. He's not going to get a shot at a better car just yet. But if he keeps this up, I mean, he's bound to get in a better car at some point. I mean, the guy's just so spectacular. He's got a huge fan following. He's got the charisma. He's just got it, Yeah. Kobayashi's definitely one to watch for the future. Well, and
the other question too is if he does stay with the team, I mean, could Sauber become that better car? I mean, could they become upper midfield / sharp end contender at some point? I mean, if they get some more cash, it's a possibility.
Well, they're getting the tequila cash from Perez now, which is a big change to last year, where they basically had no sponsorship on the car at all. And this year, it's pretty well sponsored, that car. So their budget definitely went on the up. But do you really feel they have what it takes to become a top team? Do they have that vision to really, pull a Red Bull and start challenging really for wins? I don't know. For me, Sauber, I love the team. I love Peter Sauber. He's probably the coolest team owner on the grid. But they just don't seem to have that thrust to really, really get up there once. When BMW ditched them, they were almost dead. So all credit to Peter Sauber for, just buying back the team, basically out of humanity for the people in the factory, not to lay them off. But, yeah, I don't see them ever becoming the top front runners.
I don't know. I mean, you talk about vision when they had that interview with the good doctor, who I can never pronounce her name. Sorry if you're listening to this podcast, which I doubt you are.
Monisha la.
Okay, thanks for making it worse there, Steve. But yeah, no, she did a part with 5 Live during Valencia, and
yeah, one of the practice sessions. True.
Yeah, and besides having her answer one of my tweet questions, which was fantastic, she definitely seems to have, she has the drive, she has the vision, she even admitted it to herself. She never saw herself as, a racing kind of person, but, she's gotten into it, and I think, if it comes down to it, she'll drag that team kicking and screaming, maybe not, to Red Bull level, but certainly to Mercedes, maybe to Ferrari. I mean, if you got the money and you know from Perez, and if their performance keeps going up, they'll get more sponsorship, means more money, means more development. I mean, it could just be an upward spiral, much in the same way Williams has been an downward spiral.
Yeah, that's true. And then in a way, it's sad, and this is a completely business analysis of it. Of course, it's horrible what happened in Japan. But one of the consequences, one of the very minor ones, is that there's just not many Japanese sponsors going up to sponsor Kobayashi. If Kobayashi would have been in F1 10 years ago, he would have been awash in Japanese sponsorship money. But and you understand the point of those Japanese companies. This is not the time to be investing in some high-tech F1 when they have all the nuclear drama and earthquake stuff going on in their own country. But I think Sauber, they got the tequila money, but they still don't have the budget to really be challenging up top. And Mercedes got a huge budget, and they're still not there. I think unless they get some, like you say, with the results, maybe they'll snowball and some more significant sponsorship. I don't know. They're going to need more money if they really want to break into the top or even, best of the rest field. But who knows? Might just happen.
It could. You never know. And I mean, and you make a good point about the Japanese sponsors. I mean, once, get their stuff sorted at home first. Once they get that sorted, could we see more? I mean, could we see Toyota making a return a bit? I mean, they kind of left unexpectedly, and if they start going back on the upswing once, that gets worked out and this whole economic cluster gets worked out, I mean, you have Honda, you have, you have Suzuki. I mean, just get some kind of a car manufacturer behind Kobayashi's name, and that will be a huge amount of money. And once you get that, I mean, the only way is up, unless they hire Barrichello.
yeah, it's true. Kobayashi is definitely not benefiting from the situation in his country, that's for sure. But of course, this is just a minor detail, thinking of what's going on in the country for sure. It's just a minor side effect on F1, but it's definitely not helping Kobayashi's career, let's put it that way. I think that finalizes our roundup of the midfield. And again, with my super-duper scientifically calculated other WDC, for the midfield teams, which are the teams you all just discussed, I'm using the normal point scoring system for this year. So 25 for the win, 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1. And doing a separate WDC for them there. And there's quite some interesting results you might have expected, really, looking at the performance. I think this really works out well because, if someone finishes 13th or 16th in a race, people don't really take notice because there's no points to be gained from those positions. Well, with this, we kind of take the first 6 ones out of the equation and then start a whole new WDC, and it'll allow us to more check out what the people more in the midfield are bringing as results to the team. So maybe unsurprisingly, Rosberg is dominating our WDC2 with 173 points, followed by his teammate Schumacher in 118 points. So that leaves Mercedes up top of the constructors' standings in our little championship. And this might surprise people. Heidfeld in P3.
Yeah, I don't know how he did that. I mean, I don't know what kind of crazy drunken math you used to get him up there, but I would have never expected to see him up there, especially when you have people like Kobayashi. You have Buemi on a bit of a resurgence. Yeah, and, Perez, who's done solidly well, but, I don't know.
Yeah, Heidfeld just had quite a few, 12th and 13th and positions like that, which score good points in this little championship. And of course, he had the podium finish, which made him number 1 in WDC 2, so that bagged him 25 points. Definitely interesting to see Heidfeld so high up there with this alternative points counting, discarding the top 3 teams. And fourth, closely behind Heidfeld, is Kobayashi with 113 points. Just goes to show how well he's doing, dragging that Sauber up there, challenging really close to Schumacher and Heidfeld, basically, which in a way he is as well in the regular WDC. And then Mr. Glass, Sutil, in a shared P5 with Petrov, both on 107 points. Sutil's been picking it up these last couple of races. Gotta hand it to him.
Yeah, he's been picking it up and shoving it in everyone's face.
you could say it like that.
I love
behind
Force
them,
India,
there's a bit of a Yeah, you're always ass kissing there, trying to get a job with them at some point. Hey, you won the Force India silly season competition, right?
I did.
Got you a nice mug.
I did. I actually just had some lovely coffee from it now. It's rather stylish.
Sweet. Such an inspiration. It does look pretty pimp for a mug. It looks all right. Yeah, didn't expect that from the Force India.
No, definitely. It's definitely. It's probably way overpriced, but I don't want to think about that. I'll take it for free and move on.
You won it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, behind Petrov, there's a little bit of a gap developing. We got Buemi in P7, 85 points. Behind that is Paul Di Resta with 80 points. So he is lagging a bit behind, 27 points behind his teammate Sutil. Due to that pretty weak performance, rookie mistakes, in Canada and stuff. But definitely picking it up in Hungary again. So who knows where Di Resta might end up here. P9 Alguersuari, 73 points. So, even though in the other WDC, the real one, we should say, they're very close, there's quite a gap between Buemi and Alguersuari, 12 points. That's not negligible. Perez in P10, quite surprising as well, but of course he missed 2 races. And, he had a couple, Malaysia was a very bad one for him as well. So Perez only P10 at 54 points. And then we come to the back of the midfield, and unsurprisingly, I guess, Barrichello and Maldonado. Barrichello still giving Perez a run for his money, surprisingly, with 48 points. And Maldonado bringing up the rear with 6 points.
Boy.
Maldonado. He's pointless in the real WDC, but only 6 in this one. So that just shows how bad his race pace really is, always finishing way in the back.
Yeah.
So for the constructors, that leaves us with Mercedes, Renault, Sauber, Force India, Toro Rosso, and Williams in that order. And interesting take I find on the midfield. Some surprises.
Some surprises, yes. But you say Maldonado is pointless in the real WDC. He's also pointless in the Williams. Get him out of that car, Frank. Come on. I don't. Does he have some potential? Yes, but for Williams, who should be a much higher team than they are,
if even in the alternate point scoring system he's only at 6, that's a ticket out of here. But they need his money. He'll probably be in that car next year.
True, very true. It's all about the green.
So let's go to our beloved friends, which we so respectfully call the real Backmarkers. Which are, of course, Team Lotus. Sadly, they thought they would be up there in the midfield this year. They're not really. They're basically on an island of their own, the Lotus cars. They're not quick enough to really be challenging the midfield, but they're a second and a half, 2 seconds ahead of the Virgins and the HRTs. While the Virgins and the HRTs are giving each other a run for their money. They've been dicing it out a little bit. What's your take on, let's start with the HRTs. What do you think about them?
I think they're a joke, to be honest.
You're not alone.
I gotta respect them for their tenacity to want to be in Formula One and want to stay in Formula One. But when you basically blow off preseason testing and run your old car, which is nothing like your new car, then come with a half-finished car to the first Grand Prix, which was 3 weeks after what should have been the first Grand Prix, had Bahrain not to start shooting their people. So you get 3 extra weeks, and you still can't finish, and you still don't run the race. I'm just like, what's the point? Why are they in this? They're basically taking drivers that are either complete new rookies that don't have, that natural knack that attract the big teams, and they take drivers that are desperate to keep a seat in F1, mash them together. It's a recipe for utter disaster. I don't know what they're doing there.
There doesn't seem to be any direction behind the HRT team. And like you say, Bahrain started shooting everybody up, pretty much saved their F1 ticket because they wouldn't have been able to show up in Bahrain. That's pretty clear. And I think the thing is, if you don't show up at a race, you just get kicked out. That 3-week break really saved them. And then even, like you say, they even just got into the Australia race doing their first laps in the car during qualifying. That was a bit of a shambles. But who knows, with the new management coming in, well, they don't seem to be people that are too experienced in F1. basically just investors again, and we see how well that ended up with G&I Capital in Renault. But who knows? Maybe something will come out of it. Jeff Willis and Colin Collis, gotta hand it to those guys. Without those guys, they're really carrying that team and somehow making it to the grid.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what more can you say about HRT? It's just been an unmitigated disaster, that whole thing. I mean, and you're right about the whole you don't show up, you get kicked out. I mean, that's how US GP, or US F1, whatever the team that was supposed to be from America basically failed. Is they were like, well, we can't show up to the race, and the FIA was like, well, bye-bye, you owe us $1 million.
Goodbye then.
So,
Yeah.
I just...
Well, one exciting thing coming out of HRT was Ricciardo's appointment. I mean, we've already discussed it a bit, but that's pretty much the only piece of news this year involving HRT where I said, that's cool.
Yeah, but even still, I mean, it just shows you how weak of a team they are, where basically the top team is able to go to them and be like, hey, would you kindly put this driver in place of, I don't know, say Karthikeyan? And they're like, oh, sure, why not? Here, give us some money. So I mean, it's just like when you have a team that's basically willing to drop one of their drivers, pardon the pun, at the drop of the hat, for somebody that another team wants to test. I mean, that doesn't bode well.
Red Bull must have forked out some good money because, Karthikeyan brings them their only sponsor with Tata, the Indian car manufacturer. So yeah, then Red Bull must have forked out quite a bit of money, actually, I think, to get Ricciardo in that seat. For them to give up Karthikeyan. I don't know if the Tata sponsorship is still on the car now that Karthikeyan isn't driving. I mean, I guess we all know Karthikeyan is going to be in the car for the Indian Grand Prix at least. That just seems like an HRT thing to do. And, Team Lotus are probably going to do the same thing with Chandok. Even though I love the guy, but not very quick. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, HRT, a mess. Nobody really knows what they're doing in F1, and at least they're giving Ricciardo a chance to prove himself, as long as that's possible in HRT, and Liuzzi a slim chance to keep his F1 career alive, and I think that's basically it about HRT, right?
That's all I can think of. I'm actually searching now to see if they even still have the Tata sponsor. So good old Wikipedia is about to be my friend.
Yeah, or just try to find a picture of last week's Grand Prix, but since the mainstream media always just kind of forgets about the backmarkers, it's even hard to find a picture of them, let alone have them some on-track camera time.
Yeah, I know. It's always... I mean, I love Brundle, don't get me wrong, but what was it? They were talking about Lewis Hamilton or something like that, and they're like, oh, yeah, Lewis Hamilton, da-da-da-da. Oh, and Liuzzi's out of the race. Okay, moving on. La, 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 la. So it's just like, what? Did they even care?
What happened? Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, because there's a lot of fighting going around between the HRTs and the Virgins, at least. They seem to be swapping positions quite often in the race, and they're really racing each other hard, but never, ever do you see Brundle mentioning that or, see him on track. You only see him on track when they're getting lapped, basically, or when they explode or something horrible happens to them, which seems to only happen to the Renaults this year. But, it's a bit of a shame there's not more... attention paid to the backmarkers. I mean, sure, there's not a lot of lulls in this year's racing, but last year, even though it was boring as hell on the front, even then we didn't ever see Lotus or Virgin HRT. And for the Lotus, same goes. I mean, Heikki Kovalainen's been dicing it out with the midfield, at least in his first stints, usually. He tends to drop off after the first stint. But in the first stint, Kovalainen, like in Hungary, was dicing it out with Heidfeld, and we never see that. It's such a big shame. I really... wish they paid more attention to that in the race. But I don't know what's going on with Lotus. They seem to have quite some reliability issues. I mean, I think they had the most DNFs of pretty much any other car in the field.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Trulli, he might be onto something about his power steering complaints because there's something wrong with that car. But I don't know. And to answer your question, HRT still does have the Tata sponsor, even on Ricciardo's car.
They do.
So I guess it's kind of a demonstration of just how good Karthikeyan is.
Or just how much money Red Bull are paying.
That too. But yeah, no, I mean, just even looking at this car now, I mean, aerodynamically, it just looks...
They still have that little fin in the back as well, right?
Well, the picture that I'm
shark
seeing,
fin-like thing?
I can only see the front of the car. Let me see if I can find a picture of the back, but I think they do. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think they've ever taken that off.
Yeah, I mean, it's not connected to the rear wing to stall it like with the F-duct, which all the other cars had last year, which I very much doubt the HRT had, since they didn't bring any updates throughout the whole season. I mean, they were racing the exact same spec car in Monaco that they did in Monza. But, yeah, I think they still have that little shark fin, which is flopping about. If the rare rear view cameras you see from the HRT, you see it flopping about like that. I don't see how that's aerodynamically very efficient. But,
it's not. It does more harm than anything. But yes, they do still have it. A picture of Tintonio, who also is a sporting Tata sponsor. Funnily enough, that's the only sponsor on that car, as you said. I could still see the little thing that says, "This is a cool spot." Well,
yeah, facepalm moment right there.
Lols. And funnily enough, looking at this picture of Liuzzi, or not Liuzzi, rather, actually, no, yeah, Liuzzi. We can see Williams in the background. Don't know who it is because of the haze of his exhaust, but there's a Williams back there.
Well, Williams might actually lap someone.
I hope and pray that's what that picture is showing.
Yeah, so, yeah, let's, well, we were still kind of talking about the Lotuses. Yeah, definitely pretty much in a class of their own. Not fast enough for the midfield, really, but too fast for the backmarkers. But we still chuck them in with the backmarkers score, of course. But yeah, Kovalainen's dominating Trulli in qualifying. Even now he got his power steering worked out. Still got beaten by Kovi in quali in Hungary.
Yeah, Kovalainen definitely needs to be in a better car. Kind of like Kobayashi. I mean, the guy is a great driver. Was he McLaren caliber when they had him in that car? Maybe not. You could argue. But, you know, definitely a good midfield driver. Could be a top field driver one of these times, but, I mean, you know, it's kind of like the backmarkers are like the black holes of drivers. Once they get sucked in, you never see them again. You know,
yeah, well, it seems, in Kovalainen's case, he seems to be really up for it to, like, work on the franchise, the Team Lotus, you know, go with the team towards the top. Now, that's a team with a vision, you know. Tony Fernandez is one hell of a businessman. And the team just, you know, they have that racing pedigree I was talking about earlier, and they have that vision. They got this. They're starting to get the money. I mean, they had that General Electric sponsorship coming in. They got the Caterham deal. Yeah, definitely that's a team on a mission, and they're bound to be in the midfield at least next year. And Kovalainen, he seems so happy within the team, you know. Yeah, he's finding it out in the back, but he seems to be enjoying himself. He seems just to be at ease in the team. I think it's one guy who's not really looking to move up the field. And that's not saying, like, if McLaren would offer him a seat back, he wouldn't take it. But I don't think he's really desperate to move up. I think he's really good where he is, and he wants to move up the grid with the team.
True, and that just, you know, that even bodes better for the team if you have a driver who's willing to stick it out with you, regardless of your finishing position. I mean, yeah, it's a perfect situation. What more can you say about it? It's better than HRT or Williams or Virgin, who are just kind of floundering.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing in F1? But yeah, Team Lotus definitely they are on a mission. And Trulli, yeah, like you said, constant whining about the power steering, but he was ecstatic after practice with the new bits they brought to the power steering. He was like, yeah, Trulli was like 20 years old again, like all happy and stuff. But then qualifying, out-qualified again. His race didn't go too well. He as Kovalainen had to retire, and then he got pissed off at Perez like we talked about. So, yeah, back to his old whiny self, and that's another pun for those who knows Trulli's vineyard.
Yes, a lot of wine to go with his F1 car.
Yeah. Do you see Trulli continuing in F1 next year with Team Lotus?
It all depends on how desperate he is to stay in Formula One. I mean, the guy definitely has something to parachute into. It's not as though, like, okay, what next? Like, you know, some of these other guys would be if you all of a sudden took away Hamilton's seat, it'd be like, well, what the hell do I do now? You know, he's got something to go into.
Go to Hollywood.
Go to Hollywood, yes. You know, work on the vineyard full time. You know, have a selection of wine. Yeah, definitely change of pace from 5G turns, but I mean, I don't know. Could
Trulli's
he
a
say
guy-
next year? Since they've worked out the power steering now, I might give him another year. But if things go back to the way they were, if this was just like a temporary moment of bliss, then no, I see him going away.
Yeah, and Trulli's a guy, in contrast to Kovalainen, who's not happy to be racing at the back of the field. I mean, he's still reminiscing of his Toyota days, where, could fight for the odd podium, and, the one win he had in Monaco with the Renault. You just see he's not content to be fighting in the back like Kovalainen is. And, I just don't see him as a franchise kind of driver. Who do Team Lotus have lined up to replace him? Chandok? I know you're a big fan of Chandok for his commentary and everything, but is he really F1 caliber as a driver? I doubt it, to be honest.
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, I love the guy. I absolutely love Chandok. He's with me. It's Hamilton, Kobayashi, Chandok are my top three. As far as just my favorite drivers.
When it comes to personality, right?
Well, but see,
I mean,
here's
Hamilton
the thing,
and Kobayashi, they got the driving skill. But
here's the other thing, too, though. If you look at Chandok, he got his debut in HRT, and we all know how that goes, right? So he works his way from HRT to third driver for Lotus, and never has any experience with the Pirellis at all, or with the 2011 Lotus car. And, was the guy really slow? Yeah, but then again, so is Ricciardo on his first run. In his first race. I mean, you would need to give the guy more time to drive the car than one race in the middle of the season with all kinds of bits and bobs added onto it. Would he? I mean, see, that's the thing is, I don't know. Could the guy show some potential outside of an HRT car and having time to, actually learn what the car drives like? I don't know. I don't think he's had enough time to really make any kind of assessment on him. To be fair.
Yeah, well, he's been a bit unlucky with the few free practice sessions he got. Well, there was the facepalm moment when he put it in the wall in the first corner in Melbourne, and then he had another one, I think it was Valencia, where he did his outlap and the gearbox gave up on him, and then there was a rainy session in Silverstone where he didn't get much running, so he hasn't been lucky when it comes to getting seat time in. And like I said, we're sure to see him in the car for the Indian Grand Prix. So who knows what he'll be able to do, Now he's got a full race under his belt. He's got some experience with the Pirellis. So, maybe not a write-off yet, but he hasn't really impressed me yet, to say the least. So, might be another Team Lotus seat up, race seat in any case. So it's going to be interesting to see who get that if Trulli effectively does get out of here. So, we'll know. It'll be an interesting one to watch. So let's move on to the last team we have to discuss, and I got a little prejudice for them there because that's my good compatriot Jerome D'Ambrosio in there, and the Virgin team, of course. All CFD approach. Nick Worth was finally CFD is the way to go, and then the car turned out to suck balls.
I got to give him credit where credit is due. He tried something new. He tried something innovative with design of an F1 car. I'll give him props for that. But you got to realize when it isn't working, a wind tunnel, you could have gotten that car in the wind tunnel much earlier and improved the performance. I mean, I don't understand. CFD is a wonderful program, but I mean, you can't mathematically determine how a driver is going to react to something. And more instances than not, they'll react in a way that a computer doesn't predict. So they put different kinds of loads on the car, different kinds of responses on the throttles and on the arrows and all that good fun. So CFD, while, again, I'll give him credit for it, I don't think it is ever really going to work out. And Virgin just heard that and was like, ooh, this sounds fun. Let's just sign the check. And now
Branson loves the low-cost approach.
Yeah, I know. And now you have a situation where your compatriot is finishing behind the Hispanias. So, next year, with a wind tunnel and some CFD, can they perform well? I don't know. The problem is 2010 I could have said, okay, maybe they'll be able to get up to the Lotus's pace, but the Lotuses have really taken off. So then you're left fighting the HRTs, and then you have your own little island there with the Lotus in their midfield. The Virgin's too fast for the Hispanias, but too slow for the Lotuses, and then you have the HRTs.
Well, who knows? Next year they'll be fighting Renault and Williams in the back.
Well, but then again, Williams is getting the Renault engines, so all likelihood, they'll have a little bit of a boost from that, if nothing else. Renault, I see your point. Yeah, when they have to put their exhaust in the back, which has been their saving grace, is the front-facing exhaust. When they have to comply with the new FIA mandates, and I don't know.
Well, Renault's reportedly even looking at introducing a regular exhaust, rear exiting, this season still. So even though it was a very innovative project, and gotta give them major props to like try something out of the box like that, it doesn't just seem to bring them that much of a performance gain, especially if they're looking at changing it now again. Back to standard. I know they tested it in a straight line aero test, a rearward facing exhaust. So, and then there's the whole blowing up thing, which is linked to that front exhaust as well. Yeah, gotta give them props for trying, but doesn't seem to work out, and they won't gain anything from it next year from their experience. Like you said, there's gonna be the periscope exhausts again, so yeah, Renault, who knows, we might see him fighting the Virgins next year, and it won't be because Virgin took such a huge leap. But like you say, Virgin, CFD, good approach, good idea, innovative again, ballsy, but just put it one day in a wind tunnel, won't hurt, just correlate the data, just one day, you can still say it's 99% CFD, but a little bit of wind tunnel, but no, dogmatic approach. And, now they kicked out Nick Wirth, and they basically have no one to develop their car for this year. They do have Pat Simmons on board as a consultant, and Singapore Gate or not, Pat Simmons is awesome. He's a great engineer. He knows what needs to be done to be a winning team, or at least higher up on the grid. So if they follow his lead and do what he says, basically, I have some hopes for them. On the driver front, they have Timo Glock. Glock's an awesome guy. He seems to be able to take the maximum out of that car every time, even though the maximum just isn't very much. I mean, he split the Lotuses from time to time, finished ahead of them sometimes. So, yeah, Glock's definitely doing what he can with the material he's given. He's been announced for next year as well, so they're going to be keeping him. So he must have some happiness looking at the McLaren deal, for instance, for a technical partnership. So some prospects there. And D'Ambrosio, yeah, I mean, he was all right in the beginning of the season, was doing better than I expected. I qualified Glock 2 or 3 times, I think. But he seems to be falling back now as the season is progressing. He qualified last for Hungary. Sure, he was only 2/10 off Glock, but the HRTs both squeezed between him. And then he had the pretty funny moment of spinning in the pit lane. I'm sure that's a first.
Yeah, that when I saw that at first, I thought, did he have to take, because they cut to it rather abruptly, and I thought, well, did he have to take some evasive action? Was somebody coming? Did they release him early? And then, no, he just decided, I'm going to come in now. Oh, hi there, people. Let me run you down. I can imagine.
He was just lucky no HRT mechanics were in there. He would have just rammed all of them.
It was quite funny. I can only imagine what those Virgin mechanics looked like underneath their helmets. They were probably like, holy shit, I'm going to die.
I think a few needed a pants change after that one.
Indeed. I was impressed they were able to get the pit stop off as quick as they did following that. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, they definitely jumped back on it right away. Just almost got killed. But so I think he just got caught out by one of the painted patches in the pit lane and just spun it around. But yeah, that was definitely basically his first noob mistake of the year, though. Gotta hand it to him. And of course, I'm biased. He's Belgian, and we haven't had a Belgian in F1 since a pay driver in '94.
We haven't had an American in F1 since what, 70 something? So hey.
Yeah, but you guys prefer to turn left.
Shut
right
up.
turns are a difficult concept for race car drivers in America, apparently.
I'm giving you the finger right now.
The Vettel finger?
I am faster than you.
Smell my speed.
I'm really, really quick and shit.
So yeah, the Virgins. Well, like you say, they're no way they're gonna catch Lotus this year, next year. It's a toss-up. But at least they'll have some good fights in the back with the HRTs, which is a bit, bad for Virgin. I mean, at least they had a car ready, and to have a team like HRT being able to fight with them on track, yeah, that's got to be majorly disappointing.
Yeah, many face palms by Richard Branson.
Yeah, well, although he doesn't seem to care that much about his team, but he still hasn't put on a stewardess outfit for losing his bet with Fernandez last year.
No, I'm not looking forward to seeing that either when he does do that.
Yeah, that's probably not going to be the best side of them all. So yeah, that basically finishes our roundup for the backmarkers, and let's check out WDC 3. My hugely calculated with 5 million formulas. See how they stack up. So for them, we're using the same point system as for Group 1, since there's only 6 cars again. So 10, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1 points for the top 6 places, disregarding everybody and their mama in front of them. And surprisingly enough, we have Trulli leading the championship with 55 points ahead of his teammate Kovalainen with 52. I did not expect that.
I don't know what kind of formula you used for that, but how Trulli beat Kovy, I don't know.
He basically finished ahead of him in more races than Kovalainen did. Because, well, they haven't really been challenged by Virgins or HRTs, unless the few DNFs they had, of course. And Kovalainen had one more DNF, I think, than Trulli.
I guess I would explain it still. I did not expect that at all.
And another surprise in P3, it's not Glock, it's D'Ambrosio. He's ahead of Glock.
He has had a solid
45 points
season.
to 42.
I'll give you that, despite our, country mocking that we are doing. He has had a solid season. Undercovered, I think, by, the BBC and all the media. I mean, it was basically Di Resta, D'Ambrosio as the two big new guys, and really it's a love fest for Di Resta, and D'Ambrosio's kind of like, he's back there, back somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think
Belgian
he deserves more
Virgin,
coverage than he gets.
Yeah, he's really been pretty much ignored. I mean, he should be getting some more coverage in Spa, being his home Grand Prix and everything, so the BBC are probably going to do an interview with him. I mean, that just seems logical as the only home driver to that Grand Prix. So who knows, maybe he'll get some extra coverage there. Would be cool for him. He deserves it. I mean, I was expecting him to do worse because, let's face it, he didn't get there on merit. He wasn't very good in GP2, didn't really set the world on fire there. He just got in there thanks to Boulier, basically, with his gravity management and then a bag of sponsor money. But he's doing better than I expected, I got to say. He's doing enough to warrant a contract renewal. Someone comes along with a bigger bag of money, D'Ambrosio is out of there next year.
Agreed. I'm completely agreed.
So, yeah, Glock in P4, which is mostly due to Glock having more DNFs than D'Ambrosio. But still, D'Ambrosio ahead of him in our championship. Then fifth is Liuzzi, 22 points, so lagging quite a bit behind. The only result he finished ahead was, of course, in Canada with the rainy, crazy-ass race. And then we have a whole swath. We have Ricciardo, who already overtook Kartikeyan. Ricciardo's got 12 points now. Kartikeyan stuck on 11, and until India, at least, he won't be gaining any more points. And good old Karun Chandok with 2 points all the way in the back, but can't blame him. He's only had one race, of course. So, yeah, that's the alternate WDC standing. Lotus on top, of course, unsurprisingly, 107 points. Virgin, 89 points. HRT, 45 points. So, yeah, a couple surprises again with the alternative ranking. Definitely Trulli ahead. D'Ambrosio ahead. I did not expect that, I got to say.
Yeah, most of all this Trulli, I did not expect that with all his complaining and all his whining about his power steering. Did not expect to see him ahead of Kovalainen, but if, Kovy might have had a few more DNFs. I don't know, D'Ambrosio beating Glock. Not as much of a surprise to me. Yeah, he's new, but at the same time, I mean, you never really hear any coverage of them anyway. So it's just like, well, sure, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to do this alternate WDC, because you could actually put points on their performance, because otherwise, yeah, they're counted as who has the highest race finish, but that's just due to DNFs in front of them, and this must really hurt for Virgin, because they're still a bit quicker than the HRT, but thanks to the HRT getting ahead of them in Canada, with, what was it, P13, they're basically guaranteed to have the 11th spot in the WCC, and Virgin will finish last again like last year, despite having a quicker car.
Yeah, it can get a bit interesting with that method. I mean, you never know. I mean, in Belgium, we've had some rainy races before, as we remember from David Coulthard's moment a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, 98.
Singapore, well, it could absolutely pour there. Japan, Korea, India, I don't know when they're going there during the wet or the dry season, so it's either going to be perfectly sunny or a deluge. I mean, so there's still plenty of rain races to come up that could completely shake up the order.
Yeah, it's true. A lot can still happen. And, you know, the Lotus are only on P10 in the WTC because they have two 13th places. If HRT pick up another one, they might even jump ahead of Lotus. Can you imagine that?
That would just be the ultimate facepalm moment. Just because, yeah, I could not see that.
Yeah,
I don't want to think about that Spanish
spine.
bastard just jumping up and down. Ugh. It would make Alonso probably facepalm to be Spanish at that point.
Yeah, they must be having wet dreams of getting Alonso in their car, but never gonna happen. Maybe Alguersuari, if he gets booted out, he might pull a Liuzzi, a desperate move, and go to HRT. Who knows?
I don't know anybody
If he
that
gets booted out of the
except,
Toro Rosso.
I don't know.
Well,
I'll take a seat, but then again, I've never raced an open seat car in my life, so, you know, if HRT offered me a seat tomorrow, I'd take it.
Yeah, I've done a bit of karting. I'll do it. Yeah, no worries. I'll go right at it. So yeah, that basically rounds up our wrap-up of the preseason, first half of the season, the Hungarian Grand Prix, and the alternate WDC developed scientifically by us here at Backmarkers F1. So let's take a quick look ahead at what's coming. We got my home Grand Prix, Spa coming up, then Monza. We've briefly touched on this. Red Bulls, you still see them on top. It's tracks they usually struggle
on. Spa, potentially, just because that has some slower corners. You know, it's a very interesting track. It's a very unique track. You know, it'll become a matter of will McLaren be able to get their act together, get the corner speed down, as well as the straight line speed. They definitely have a straight line speed advantage if Hamilton or Button or both pip the Red Bulls for qualifying position. I think it'll pretty much be a done deal unless one of them makes a stupid mistake. Red Bull, I don't know. Monza, I would hand to McLaren and Ferrari, hands down. Ferrari because home Grand Prix, they have to perform well there, or you know people start getting shot in the factory. McLaren, you know they have the pace. Red Bulls. I think their next big opportunity is probably not even Singapore, probably Japan. I would have to say, just because Singapore is a lot more technical, and technical tracks don't seem to be their forte.
Yeah, Japan's definitely another track that should suit the Red Bull. But then again, we said that about Hungary, and they weren't that far ahead in quali, and they were behind on race pace. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting last couple of races. For the neutral supporter, let's hope Vettel has a few DNFs so the WDC gets interesting again. And, well, at least behind him, there's going to be a nice little battle. Hamilton, Alonso, Button, and Webber. And, well, Massa bringing up the rear. So I think we've been jabbering on pretty much long enough for this inaugural version of the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. Make sure you can follow me at the Villain F1 on Twitter, and you can follow Matt at AgentMolder5, right?
Yes.
On Twitter as well. We both have our blogs. Mine is Backmarkers F1, and Matt, you care to remind the people where they can find your blog?
Mine is fasterthanyu.wordpress.com. I haven't posted there in a while. Gonna have to get back on that, but I've been swamped by exams, which is never fun.
Yes, becoming the new Newey is hard work.
Or I just need to suck up to some people and throw some money around. That works too.
That works well. Well, I had a blast with this first little inaugural podcast. Hope you did as well. Signing off here for us right now. So I'm going to say peace out. Make sure you tune in to the next one. Probably after the Spa Grand Prix.
Catch you guys later.